Okay, so now here we are in the Rabbit. I know it's messy, but it's just what it is. It's a project. You got to expect some sort of mess. So this is the cross member that's given us some issues, or at least the initial issues. In the original configuration, the seat would attach here and here on these sliders by sliding in from the back, and then there's a tab that comes down that this little bar slides through. There's a lever on the seat that would activate this, and there's a little spring that held it here. So if you wanted to slide the seat forward and back, you loosen it, moves this little peg out. You can slide the seat forward and lock the seat back in with the peg. So since we're putting a much newer seat in here, and we're going to build up a whole new cross member to replace this so that we have something to bolt the front of our seat to. And then we're also going to do that back here between the sliders, hopefully. Once we get the seat in here, we're going to figure out exactly how far side to side we need to go. But our first mission is on the passenger side, and we're going to get this one cut out. We're going to start on the passenger side because we can make a few more mistakes on the passenger side and not worry about like driver positioning as much, because the passenger isn't grabbing the steering wheel, it's not grabbing the pedals, anything like that. So we can kind of use the passenger side as our template and play around with it a little bit, make some mistakes on this side, fix everything, and then the driver's side will go a lot quicker. So off we go. We're going to cut this out. And when we talked about one of the differences between the earlier and the later cars, this is one of the differences right here. These are the brake lines for the rear brakes, and they ran these inside the car. Moisture and all that kind of stuff coming down off this grommet, and then just the moisture condensing on the brake lines caused some rot issues on the inside. Plus, if you have a brake line leak, who really wants brake fluid inside the car? You know, if you got a rally car and you've got a flying off handbrake, or you've got a line lock somewhere, that's a whole different scenario. But in the later cars, they moved these outside. So, all right, let's get cutting. Now, I'm sure at this point we've probably really angered some people by cutting up this car. But I assure you it will be better. And we found a penny from the year 2000. So just increased our profits by a cent already. So looks like I missed a little bit up here. I'm going to cut that off real quick. So some of you might be concerned that we're taking structural rigidity out of this car. That's not going to be the case. First of all, this is just really thin sheet metal that this seat attached to originally. You can see it's got one little cross brace in here that's up and down that's kind of welded into that U, and it's not really super rigid. So we're going to make a whole new cross member that's going to go between here, and it'll be welded significantly stronger than the original metal was. We'll clean up all this stuff here and make things a little bit nicer before we weld in the new cross member. But as you can see, there's not a lot to it originally for, what is it now, 40-year-old car, 42-year-old car. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our seat and we're going to set it in here and see where else we need to make room for this seat to fit, because we know that the front of the seat originally sat right here. So if we get the front of the new seat right here, we'll still have adjustability on the rails, but we kind of know where the front and the back of the seat need to be. So we're a little ahead already. Okay, so look at these pretty seats. Everybody loves plaid. Well, at least I like plaid. So we've got the seat actually sitting in the vehicle right now, and we're going to look at the first of a couple of issues that we're going to have getting this seat to fit in here. So as you can guess, a car that's 40 years newer is going to be wider than this old Rabbit. So I'm going to set this down here on the floor pan. Let's see if we can get some perspective on what needs to happen here. So you can see these rails are significantly wider than the rails that were in there before. And we're actually right now, right up here at the front, we're actually going into the outer rocker, or the inner rocker panel right here, which is okay. We've got room that we can modify this structure here and not worry about stability of the vehicle. And over here on this side, we are striking right up against the exhaust tunnel. So we're probably going to need to modify that. When you come up here, you can see up here it's just a little bit wider in the front than it is in the back. But the good thing is this is just a piece of plastic that snaps onto here or breaks off, which is okay. It's amazing how much more fragile a 2-year-old piece of plastic is than a 40-year-old piece of plastic. So if we try to twist this in here a little bit more, you can really get a perspective at where our problems are going to be initially. So you can see right here where this widens out for the shifter, which is this piece right here. Knocking my light over. So the shifter, fortunately, we have some leeway with, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But we are most likely going to have to make a cut through here and then over here and bring this, I have to reduce the size of the exhaust tunnel to make this seat drop down, because right now it's just sitting way too high. It's actually sitting, if you see, I don't have access to that other panel, that other piece that we took out, but if you compare on that side, with all the other stuff in the way, if you compare that side to this side, the original piece sat up about here. So we're not probably too far off initially of where this seat sat from the factory when it was actually installed. Let me back up. We're probably not too far off the height of the original Rabbit seat when there was a Rabbit seat installed in this car. So we've got that. There is some height adjustability on these seats as well. If we take these levers, we can move it up. We can't move it down any further. So if we're going to get this seat to drop down into the car, there's two ways we can go. We can either modify that side, which we're going to have more room to play with than we are on this side. The reason that we can modify the exhaust tunnel is because we're switching to a completely different style of shifting. We're switching to a cable shift mechanism, which will, if you were able to see through underneath here, everything in the 70s was rods and levers and stuff like that. And there's a piece that goes up underneath here that has a rod that actually goes all the way to the front of the vehicle, and that's what connects your shifter to the old rod style transmission. Since we're going to use a cable shift, we're actually going to run the box above the exhaust tunnel here, and we're going to run these cables up through the firewall underneath the carpet, so you won't see them. Real clean, and it makes it real clean. We might actually even build a little box to set the cable shift mechanism on to get the height of the shifter closer to where it was initially. I know some guys like to cut the shift lever way down, but we might as well make it comfortable to drive and not have to reach, a country mile for that shifter. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take this seat back out after we make some more marks on here, and we're actually going to cut through the exhaust tunnel, and we're going to make this passenger compartment a little bit wider for getting this seat fit in here. So let's take some measurements. I'll go find my magic Sharpie. So I don't have my Sharpie handy, but what I do have is one of these critters, and I don't know if you can see it in here, it's pretty dark, but this is called a silver welder's pencil, and it writes in silver, and you might be able to see if I write on there. Since somebody's painted this, let's do it over here. Since somebody painted this car with flat black paint, you can see that it makes marks in silver. And when you're working on sheet metal, these welder's pencils, when you're grinding and stuff, will actually show up better than just a regular pencil. So if you have a Sharpie, though, it's like a Sharpie, works really good. Kind of universal universal metalworking tool is a Sharpie. So, at least for me it is. So let's take some marks here. We're just going to kind of rough this out, and then we'll have to kind of trim things back and forth as we go. So remember, right here is our leading edge of where our cross member used to be. So we're going to come right through here. And the other thing we're going to have to take into account is these sliders moving back and forth too. So we might actually end up having to make, once we figure out the height we're going to be sitting at, we might actually have to make a cut through here and relieve this as a path for the slider. And since we've got plenty of room to work with here, I'm just going to bring this straight over from there. We're going to make that a nice little place for that to live. We might even be able just to bend this back once we cut it out, and we'll leave it in there for later to bend up and fill with.
Okay, so we're set up now. We're ready to cut here. Now we've taken the seat out of the way. We can look a little closer, and we can see that this is not actually exhaust tunnel, which is awesome for what we're doing here. This actually is a raised section that goes up over this exhaust tunnel and gives a raised platform for that shifter to sit on. But it kind of drops down to meet the level underneath it. So this area right here that we're going to cut out, we're just going to cut out right up to here for now. And we're just going to cut this down here to make it, hopefully, we'll just get just enough room out of this that we won't have to go into the actual floor pan. We're just cutting out this support for the shifter reinforcement. And then we can fill it. We can obviously fill and make it pretty later, but once the carpet's over the top of it, most people aren't going to look underneath the carpet. At least I hope you don't look underneath the carpet, because that would be really douchey. Especially since I made a video showing you how I did it. So what we did find in here is we did find the other piece of that cross member that was welded in before this was welded in. So that piece that went across here for the seat support was one original piece from the factory, not two. And this piece was put in over the top of it. So just got a little more trimming to do. I got a little too deep on my cut, so I'm going to have to weld that up at some point, but that's easy to do. So you can always come back and fix stuff later with a welder.
Okay, so now we've got all this offending metal cut out of the way. Let's grab our seat and see if it fits, or at least fits better. Okay, so now we have the seat back in the car, and if you're going to do fabrication and stuff like this, you've just got to accept that whatever you're working on, you're probably going to take it in and out of the vehicle 10, 12, 15, 20 times. It's just how it goes. It sucks. Nobody really likes doing it, but, you know, in and out, in and out, in and out until you get it to, well, maybe I should rephrase that. Yeah, that was going places we didn't need to go. So, I'm going to take the seat out of the car and put it back in several times until I'm satisfied with the fit. You get where I'm going with this. So anyway, we put the seat in. We're kind of down in our little recess that we cut out. I probably could cut out just a little bit more, but that kind of goes with the trial and error part of our stuff we're doing here. You can see that it would be really awesome if we can get this to drop down further, but we're gonna have to cut more if we're gonna get it to drop down further. We should you can see, like here, it's still not drop. the light on over here. Get some. All right. So, as is the case. With projects like this, sometimes you cut out a little bit more than you need to. That's okay because you can add metal. Unlike working with wood, it's a little harder to add wood later. It's a lot easier to add metal than it is wood. So, we have this seat almost where we want it. If I had a couple of things to set it up on, I could probably get it even a little bit closer. But we are, for the lack of a better, this is right about where we're going to want to see this seat. It's fairly low in the car. We still need to go through and make sure that it's square. You know, straight this way, so that we're not sitting in the car crooked. But we've got some more metal work to do, obviously. But our cut into the inner rocker panel over here was exactly what we needed to get that seat to drop down, right down into that hole. So that's probably a little bit lower than we'll end up having it sit when it's all said and done. But we'll bring it up just a hair. And obviously we're going to go through and clean all this up and make some panels and try to get stuff to fit in there real nice and pretty, so that if somebody does look up underneath the carpet, they won't be completely horrified. So probably our next thing that we're going to do, we're kind of running out of time for today, but the next procedure that we're going to do is we'll probably bend up a little bit of a cross member and get the front of the seat to sit right on that cross member so that we can sit in it, make sure that it's exactly where we want. We can always trim the cross member and bring it down shorter, but we don't want to make it too short to start. And then we'll tack that cross member in here, get the seat exactly where we're going to have it be in its final resting place, and then we'll move forward from there with filling in our holes here in the inner rocker that we made with some sheet metal. Looks like we're going to have to cut out a little bit more along the edge here so that we have something to work with, but that's okay because once we weld that back in, it'll be just as strong as the factory intended it to be. It just won't be as wide, but I'm fine with that. So as you can tell, it's a little cold out here in the shop today. I just looked outside and it's snowing. So good news, we took a little more time during the montage of cutting and taking the seat out, putting it back in, taking the seat out, and installation and removal montage, and be able to get this thing cut in a little bit further and got it to sit down pretty close to where we want it. Put the level on it. This thing is level, straight across, sitting in here, which is great. That's exactly what we want. You know, took the measurement right here where your thighs are going to sit. So if that's level, I'm fairly confident that the seat is going to be level. Of course, it's just sitting in here right now. I don't have any type of secure at all. But it's good news. We were able to make things fit. I might have to come through and trim up some of the plastics over on this side a little bit. We've got plenty of room for the seat rails to move forward and backward, which will give us the flexibility also to pivot the seat forward in case we need to get something in the back seat. These kind of have a weird complex mechanism that the seat folds forward and then kind of pops up. But these are a 4-door seat. We got a really good deal on them, so I'm probably just going to rely on it sliding forward and back to get stuff in the back seat for now. And realistically, there's probably only going to be 2 people in this car at any time ever, so not too concerned about it, especially for the deal I got on these seats. So we've got a lot of little things to touch up, you know, just to before we even just during our measurement process. But we've got plenty of room over here. We're gonna have to make a little piece to fill in here, that little part we cut out. Maybe we got a little overzealous cutting that out, but that's okay because we can always fill it back in, and you know, we've got metal to play with. So we'll have to make that work a little better, and maybe we won't cut that out on when we move to the driver's side. But still a lot of work to do. You know, we've put in a seat that's 40 years newer than this car in here, and we're doing custom fab. So anytime you do that kind of stuff, it's a very lengthy, time-consuming process. But it's okay because this car's not going to be on the road anytime soon. Although I'm hoping for summer of 2017. I say that now. It's probably not. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for summer of 2017, getting this thing on the road and driving it at least once before we have to put it away for the winter. So, just in a nutshell, to kind of wrap up what we've done on this episode, we worked on cutting out this inner rocker, cut out some of the supports over here to get this 2015 seat to drop into this 1975 car. So we've got a lot of measuring and stuff to do to get this all to look nice when it's done. So next time we're going to start working on measurements. We're going to start working on making this cross member to go across the front of the seat here so that we have something to support the fronts of the seat rails, give them something to bolt to that we can eventually weld into the car. And then we'll work on building a cross member to go across the backs of for the seat rails as well. So that's all the time I have for today. Till next time, get out there and work on something.